Hello, good day. My name is Ugonna Chukwumaife. I'm a medical doctor specializing in anesthetics. I also am of the BME community, and I had the privilege of working in the front lines during the COVID-19 pandemic. I am also a mother to three children. And today I will be talking about children returning to school. It is important that children return to school, having been at home for more than 3 months. Now, by September, all children will have to return to school. I will be sharing tips based on what the government has advised. I will also be sharing my own personal experience. I have three children who are, in different age groups, and they attend three different schools. When more children were allowed back into school, two of them returned to schools, and these were two different schools. And I'm glad to say that we were able to keep safe. Now, it is very usual to have heightened anxiety amongst parents and even staff of the school about reopening schools, because this is a very good ground for people to mix up, not just the children, the staff, and even parents, a lot of interaction going on the school ground. And being children, it's not very straightforward to maintain some of the precautions. This is the time to start talking and thinking. It is the time to start reinstituting some of those hygienic practices. At the start of the pandemic, there was a lot about hand hygiene, respiratory hygiene, keeping the surfaces clean and disinfected. But, having stayed at home for more than 3 months, it's normal and usual to play down on some of those practices. You've stayed at home, and even when you've gone out, within the bubble of your household. And later on, you might have mixed up with a few people from other households. So it's still being minimal. And I will understand if, some people have started, missing regular hand washing, hand sanitizing, and respiratory hygiene. So it is time to start getting back into that practice. Start reminding the children to wash their hands regularly, to use hand sanitizers when they cannot wash their hands. And again, being children and depending on their age, some of them may have some practices or habits that are not very hygienic. Some play blowing bubbles with their saliva, some go around with snot in their nose. I have one who was a thumb sucker up until the pandemic, and we had to make it a point of duty to ensure he stopped sucking his tongue. So look at some of those practices, risk assess them. Anyone that you don't deem to be acceptable, this is the time to start teaching and stopping them. Again, it is good to start talking to the children. Let them, speak up. Some of them may also be anxious. Some may have questions. They may also have ideas on things that could be done to still stay safe. So don't keep it quiet until the last minute. Start talking about it. That is what I did. We had the date. We started talking about returning to school, things we should and things we shouldn't do. And, we got used to it. It's also time to start engaging with the schools. So in the run up to, the schools opening in June, when some of my children went back to school, the school started sending us emails asking us for our ideas, our suggestions. They started doing the risk assessments. They came back with their assessment and they asked us if we were happy. And so there was an open communication line, and I will encourage you to take advantage of this rather than stay and die in silence. Talk to the school, ask your questions. It might even be your idea that, could keep the school safe. Talk amongst other mothers. Everybody's feeling the same way. We all have our ideas, and, talking is a good way of allaying anxiety. If the school hasn't started engaging with you, there is no harm in you opening up that communication line. We'll look at the children as individuals going in and out of school. We'll look at the routes, their mode of transportation in and out of school, and we'll look at items that are exchanged between the home and the school, because these all serve as a medium for transmitting the COVID-19 virus. And so in the morning, what I did was ensure the children leave the house clean. Either they've had a shower, a wash, or a bath, as the case may be. They leave with clean clothes. And I will talk about the clothes later on. And when they get to school, they are supervised to wash their hands and use the hand sanitizers. And they are also supervised to ensure that they maintain a reasonable distance amongst themselves and also with the teachers. But remember that a lot of interaction goes on here, and some of the children may not really understand. Now, returning home, that's the tricky bit. So what I have done is to have a designated room where the children, once they come in, they go into that room, take off their clothing up down to their underwear, shoes, leave their bags, if they've gone with bags, straight into the bathroom and have another shower, and then put on a new set of clothes before they mix up with other members of the household. Now, this ensures that, if anything has settled on their bodies, that is washed out with soap and water. Now, the other thing will be the routes. Now, with more children going back to school, I believe some of the schools will stagger the drop-off and pick-off times just to reduce the number of people, parents and children on the school ground at any given time. And so they did this in the schools where my children attended. And the government has advised social distancing on public transport. So this has reduced the capacity of public transport. But it will really surprise you how far children can walk. And so if you don't live very far away from the school, it's time to, try and see whether they can walk that distance or cycle that distance on the bicycle or on the scooter to school. These are healthy ways of getting around. And if you have your own transport, then this could be an option. However, if you must use your public transport, there are guidelines of using the public transport. Now, a lot of roadworks are ongoing, and once the schools return in September, a lot of cars will be on the road. It's going to get really busy. So I will advise, to use this time to really explore the route to the school your children attend, know if there are any roadworks going, include this in your travel time so that, we can still remain punctual, with those staggered drop-off and pick-up times. And if you're able to walk the children or cycle, this is the time to explore that route. Again, drop off and pick off times, have been, times of socializing for some parents, and there is nothing wrong with that. We've been away from each other. It would be nice to meet up, but please be advised that this is not very safe. Some of the school grounds are really small. There'll be a lot more people, children, adults. So, try to keep your stay on the school ground as minimal as possible. And if it is possible, one parent should do the pick up and drop off at any given time, and avoid taking siblings as much as you can. This will reduce the number of people on the school grounds at any given time, and allow people to come and go as they should. So the important thing is to keep the numbers low, keep your stay minimal, and keep moving. Now, let's look at the items that go in and out of school. I talked about clothing earlier on, so let's look at it now. The government has, given the schools leeway to be flexible with school uniform, but has encouraged them to, keep the children wearing school uniform. So in June, the children, were allowed to come in their own clothes, and I think this was quite helpful because it gave a lot more option for what they were going to wear, and that meant that you had more clothes to choose from. They didn't have to wear one cloth more than once before having it cleaned. Remember, they go in there, they play, they mix up, things settle on their clothes. And while the children have been at home, they've also grown in height and in weight. So it's, very useful to ensure that, the clothes or the uniform they still have do fit them. You might need to add to the wardrobe. If you need to keep wearing school uniform, then you might, think about increasing the number of school uniforms so that you can wear a clean one each day without having to wear it twice before cleaning. Now, the government has also advised that you don't need to disinfect the clothes or do anything unusual. But I believe, keeping the clothes clean is quite important. I would like to talk about books and bags. During the lockdown, a lot of online remote learning was ongoing, virtual learning, and I believe schools will be consolidating on that now. And so, if you don't need to take in books, then there is no point taking in books. But if there are essential books that you need to take in, please do well. But what I have done is that designated room they go into once they return from school. They leave the bags, they leave the books there. If they need to do homework, that designated area, it's where they do the homework. It may not be possible to have a designated room, but, have an area where the books on the bags, could be kept without just circulating it all over the house. You know what children can be sometimes. And if they're using bags, then some of the bags could be wiped down at the end of the day, but you can't really wipe books down. Avoid taking items in and out of school that are not necessary. The other thing would be lunch boxes, lunch bags, and drinking bottles. So what I did was to think of disposable packed lunch ideas. So put them in disposable packs, in disposable recyclable bags. And so they take it to school, they have their lunch, they have their snacks, and they dispose of it. Because some of these lunch bags are made of materials that you cannot easily clean and dry up. The other thing you may think of doing is getting multiple ones so you can clean and dry them frequently and have options. The bottles are easier to handle because you can clean and dry your bottles. They're either made of plastic or stainless steel, and those ones are easier to handle. And if your children are on hot meals, that is easier, and you might also think of letting your children go on hot meals to reduce the transport of lunch bag boxes in and out of school. Let's talk about the cars that they travel in and the cycles that they travel in. These also need to be wiped down at the end of the school run. So you choose whether to do it in the morning and at the end of the day, or do it at the end of the day as time permits. Remember, it's not one size fits all. I'm just sharing my ideas, the tips, and the things I have done, and some of the guidances that have come from the schools. So it is, a time for us to start thinking, get creative, look at some of these issues that I have highlighted, look at some of the medium that could serve as a medium for transmission of the virus, and see how we can get around it to reduce the risk. Also, remember that the COVID-19 is still with us. So please let us keep our interactions to minimal and essential. And because if you just get everywhere and let the children go everywhere, then you're increasing the risk of infection. The other thing I want to talk about is if any child or a member of your household develops a symptom suggestive of the COVID-19, remember the test, track and trace. Remember to stay at home and self-isolate the child or yourself or any member of the household. Remember to report it to the school immediately you notice this. So I hope these ideas I have shared, will go a long way in allaying that anxiety. Finally, I will talk about the BME community, because during the pandemic, findings show that the BME community suffered a lot more mortality and morbidity from the COVID-19 disease. However, there is no special precaution that has been found to help us. So let us, adhere strictly to the government guidelines, adhere strictly to our hand hygiene, our respiratory hygiene. Don't forget to catch it, bin it, kill it. Don't use reusable handkerchiefs or cloths to wipe faces, sweat, or saliva. Use disposable ones and bin it immediately. And hopefully, We will get through this. Thank you very much.